That's, they may not want to be, like, she's not going to be here. Want to be on the room in this company. There's no, I don't, there's a lot of personal information they're collecting about you.
Hey, do me a favor.
I'm sorry.
Back up to that doorway there and come right at me and go inside, okay?
She's being
Don't look at me.
Don't look at us as you come by. Just come on.
That's
in.
good, that's good, that's good. Okay, come on.
I apologize.
Go ahead, right into the
I
room
have
like we're not even
Too
recording.
much life, and I don't know how to put it in a short way for you. Yeah, she's more visible. Now, if you would be so kind as to take all these chairs out, and then we're going to push these tables back. Great. Good. And you know what? Just for now, can we get the trash cans out of the room?
Mm-hmm.
Super.
Very good.
Where do you want the low?
Hey, Serge, let's not shoot this yet. We don't need to get this.
This is one interaction.
Sergio. There are a whole bunch of themes that I teach at different times during the semester, and they're all sort of run together in stuff for today. So normally, you know how I say to you, raise your hand and slow me down and I'll spell the word and I want you to write it out. I'm just going to talk, but then there'll be other classes where you can slow me down, you can get the words, you can get the spelling, you can get the ideas. Super. Okay, and you'll be audience too. PowerPoint is not coming up. Anybody have any idea why it's?
Camera.
And you're going to be the keeper of the coffee. Thank you. Can you see things all right? Okay. Good. Justice will bring about peace, says the prophet Isaiah. And then Pope Paul VI in 1972 put that a little bit more dynamically. If you want peace, work for justice. Now, you know, justice is kind of an abstract word, but I want you to think of it this way, fair. When you were a little kid, did you learn it's fair to break the bar of candy in half? It's fair to share your toys with each other. So start to think, when did you begin to care about things being fair? I remember caring about this whenever I was 8 years old. Or I was going to be 8 years old, and my parents said, you can invite everyone to your birthday party. So I stood up in my classroom and I said, everybody's invited to my birthday party. Then at recess on the playground, one of the white girls pulled me aside and she said, do you mean that you are going to invite the Mexicans to your house, to your birthday party? Well, I was really upset about that. Everybody in the class was my friend. And I think all of these years later, I am thinking, what does fair mean? And What does it mean to include everyone in the big global family? If we want peace in the world, we need to do justice, we need to make things fair. If we want peace in the world, we need to have everyone in on it. Sergio, I'm going to stop right here. I don't know what's going on, that my PowerPoint is not showing. And so, Jose, see if it is not showing up. So, whole human family, and I want everything to be fair. I went to high school in this little Texas town that we are from, and I was sort of discouraged. The boys who played football got all of the attention, and I kept saying, you know, we girls, we're good students, we're good on the debate team, we are good in drama, we are good in writing, we are good in math. Why is it in the world that people are just paying attention to the boys, teaching us the history of the men, and then paying more attention to football than anything else? So I kept wondering about all those things. At the same time, I felt like God was whispering to me and inviting me to the convent. Now, I did not want to be a sister. I had a boyfriend, I wanted to have 10 children, but I kept feeling, you've got to go listen to this little whisper. And I moved from a small, segregated South Texas town with a lot of sexism into a different world. And that different world was right here on our campus. And I want you to be aware that you are living in an international, cosmopolitan, integrated, wonderful world. And what I mean by that, instead of the little town with the Black neighborhood, the Mexican American neighborhood, the white neighborhood in the 1950s and the early 60s, I moved into a family that had people from Mexico, people from Germany, people from France, people from Ireland, people from the US, all living in the same house together. And what really gave me courage is what girls were doing as students and what women were doing. Running Incarnate Word College, running Santa Rosa Hospital, running various hospitals in the United States and Mexico, giving great leadership to high schools. And so I thought, wow, girls can do anything they want. And our world can be fair. It can be people of all races and classes and cultures. It can be people of both genders working together. We need each other to make a world that is better, a world that is fair. Okay, Sergio, this is a break. How are we doing? What's going on? Okay. Great. We are a family of many, many different countries, many, many different cultures. We need each other. And my scarf from my friend in Gaza, my Palestinian friend who came here to study, gives me courage that we can make a beautiful world, a world of many colors, many cultures, a world of many dances and songs and joy. How much we need the joy, how much we need the beauty of all these cultures. Now, this scarf was given to me by a wonderful friend in Iraq, Nargis. She was a university student, my translator, and we had a wonderful friendship with each other. She wanted me to remember her, so today I want you to remember Nargis. When she was small, civil war was raging where they lived in the Kurdish area of northeast Iraq. I want you to be aware that Arab people centered in Baghdad have had most of the control, but that is an area of Turkmen people, Kurdish people, Syriani people, and Turkmen people, speaking so many different languages, and all of them wanting to have good things for their families, good things for their children. And that happens to be one of the most important areas for oil in the whole world. And so there has been a constant struggle of different groups of people wanting to control this land, which is so rich in oil. It's also very near the country of Iran. And so when Nargis was small, Iran, Iraq, different groups within the country of Iraq were struggling with each other. There was constant war, and so she, her mother, her grandmother, the 8 children were thrown on the back of a truck, and they fled trying to get away from the bombing and the killing and the danger. Now, along the way, her oldest brother said, "Let's just throw the baby in the river because we don't have time to take care of this baby. He is just a burden." And Nargis' father said, "The reason why we are fleeing is because we want it to be safe for the baby. We want it to be safe for everyone in our family. We need to take care of each other and protect each other." And so Nargis grew up in the midst of violence like this, in the midst of struggle like this. But finally, as she got older, she had opportunities to study in good schools, and she had opportunities to study ideas at the heart of Islam. Now, I want you to be aware that all of the great religions of the world, at their very, very center, have an idea of a compassionate creator that loves all of the human family and wants justice and peace and care and love for all of the human family. And as Nargis learned this more and more, she was eager to know many languages. She was eager to know English. She was eager to build bridges between people of different cultures. Right here at the University of the Incarnate Word, we have students from 70 different cultures. We all need to be the people who are building the bridges between the different cultures. We need the people who are calling for justice, who are creating compassion, who are laying in place the building blocks of peace in the world. Is everybody doing okay? All right. I'm a little perplexed which way to go, but Sergi, I hope that in all of this you're getting some little pieces that can work together. Yeah.
They're working fine. When you talk, if you would please not address the camera.
Okay,
Just
good.
speak as though we're not
Great.
here.
Good deal.
And Sergio will move around whatever you need. And we're probably going to wait to resume filming until they're done or out of
Okay, good. Then what an average family in Chad has to eat in a week, quite a contrast. And then for us to continue as about 5% of the population controlling over 60% of the resources in the world, we are very defensive. And for a long time, we have been building nuclear weapons and extensive arsenals in our defensive postures. This is just trying to calm me down to give me a sense of what I want to talk about whenever we have the pictures back. Okay. Okay. Thank you. What's your name?
David Ward.
Okay, David, thank you for being here. Don't leave quite yet, David. Great. Building schools, hospitals, we were running them. Women could do anything. It didn't matter what gender you were. And I am a dancer. I know myself in the dance and I communicate through dance. And so for the anniversary, the 100th anniversary of the Incarnate Word Sisters, nope, you are not seeing what I have on the screen. So, nothing on the screen.
Yeah, it's that one slide.
Okay. Okay,
Second
then.
slide, third slide's where it kills it.
Okay, so let's keep going. What about the other slides? Doesn't show this one, doesn't show this one.
Like Rachel, that's what he was saying. So if we make those pictures smaller, technically it should work. Let me just try to bring this down.
Yana, ho, yana, hey, yana. Hey, yana, ho, yana, hey, yana. The earth is our mother. We must take care of her. The earth is our mother. We must take care of her. And after that, we led the people across the cattle guard into the Nevada nuclear test site. And we realized that we were committing a misdemeanor going onto federal land. But the Shoshones, the native people, had given us permits, and they said, go into the land where they're building bombs, walk there as a statement for peace. And so about 245 of us were arrested that day because we wanted to make a strong statement. We must be people preserving life on our planet. We must evaluate the way we are making instruments of death. Then again, for the change of the millennium, I was with a number of people that said we must go to this place that Dom Helder Camera calls the most evil place in the whole world with its instruments of destruction. We must go there. And as we change from 1999, as we move from the century that has killed more people than any other century in the history of humankind, at midnight, we are going to make our first steps praying for peace. And so I was with Father Daniel Berrigan, one of the strongest voices during the Vietnam War. And we prepared, and then we walked across the desert in the starlight and the moonlight, taking steps for peace. Now, I want you to know that I was a student here at Incarnate Word, and the way you do community service, we were doing some service. Every Sunday afternoon, we were going to Brooks Army Medical Center, and we were visiting the veterans who had been burned in Vietnam. And we were saying to them, you know, you've made these sacrifices, but it is worth making these sacrifices. So they had lost legs and arms, they had terrible burns all over their body. But finally, I could no longer say, you're doing something wonderful. I was too upset And then I began to read that Father Daniel Berrigan and also his brother, Father Philip Berrigan, and a group called the Cantonsville Nine had gone to a draft office and they had taken out the draft files and they had burned them as a symbol that we need to be working for peace, not furthering the bombing and the burning in the world. And at that time, in 1967, I knew that I needed to be a voice for peace in the world. I need to be a voice that says the burning and the bombing are not making things better. Okay, that's a segment for this, Sergio. Anyway, okay. Pardon?
If after this triangle, where it can continue with just the prompts, is that possible? Just so they can get some visuals.
Sure.
Okay, so
Sure. Okay. Q, and I'm sorry that this is all a nightmare,
You
but
know what, it's just fine.
Great.
Because the way we put this together will be just fine.
Yeah.
What I want to do is get a little more of you interacting maybe with the stuff.
and he says the Nevada nuclear test site is the most evil place in the world because we have the potential to destroy all of the life on our planet. I was invited there to lead prayer, lead dance, lead drama in a service with Archbishop Dom Helder Camera. I danced about God's beautiful creation and then how we are polluting the earth and how nuclear testing there is so polluting the land that it will not be usable for thousands and thousands of years, and how the Shoshone Indians weep because they love Mother Earth. And so there at the test site, we prayed, we remembered the preciousness of the earth. And there, I led people dancing a song that I had written. In fact, of all of the dances and songs that I've done, it's been one of the most popular. I was working with 6,000 women and sold out on versions of the dance. You know, we can think of God as a conqueror, one who wants to have power over us. Or we can remember that Jesus washed the feet of his disciples, and Jesus said we must call each other friends and we must serve each other. And so we are called to service, we are called to friendship, we are called to mutuality in our relationships with other people of the world. And so my dance and song starts, we call you leader of armies. We call you King of Kings, the powerful one. But God, you are like a washerwoman. Washerwoman God, splashing, laughing, free. And so here I am on that earth that is so polluted, dancing about God. God who gives us the rain, God who washes our eyes with tears, God who leads us to wash the dirty diapers and cherish the little children, and God who is calling us to be people who clean up our polluted earth, not pollute the earth even more. And so let us be the people who gently care for the earth and lovingly care for the earth. We doing okay there? See, and I like that, but this is berserk, going in and out. And I stood by Archbishop Dom Helder Camera, and I danced, sacred the land, sacred the water. And The song was over and he pulled me because he wanted to dance even more. We are people who celebrate the beauty of creation. We are people who work and dance and cry to preserve creation. Okay, students, these are some theoretical ideas, but it has to do with that we build weapons of war rather than using our resources to build peace. I think I'm just going to skip that. And Christians and Muslims were fighting each other in the 1100s, the 1200s. But a man from Assisi called Francis went to the Sultan of Egypt, went to the most powerful Muslim ruler in the world, and they listened to each other. They respected each other. They didn't have to think alike, but in the world, we need to respect each other and work together towards common goals. And as Christians, as Muslims, the Sultan and Francis could find common ground. And some years later, after Francis had died, that very ruler was the one who negotiated with Christians and ended the Crusades. And so with my friend, Brother Rufino, who is a Franciscan, I went on a peace pilgrimage. I went to Cambodia and Vietnam. Now here you see the beautiful, beautiful temple of Angkor Wat in Cambodia. And I wanted to see what was called the Landmine Museum. Now, I thought that I was going to go see objects in a museum. I had no idea that I was going to see young people, wonderful young people like you, who had lost arms, lost legs, lost eyes, because every day in Cambodia, they continue to find landmines that were planted about 40 years ago. And so I went to a shop, and there at that shop, they had this image which looked like so many of them. No leg, no arm, no eye. And let us ponder, what can we do to call our government to sign on to the treaty banning landmines, as thousands of other countries in the world have done? How can we use our voices to speak for the things that make peace rather than the things that make war? See, you didn't get to see. I've got a great picture here of musicians, men that have lost their legs and their arms to landmines. But well, it's fading in and out, so here we are. And this is a carver who was making some of those things. Saigon is pretty wild with lots of motorcycles in the streets. And you see me on the back of this motorcycle. We were on our way to remember the Buddhist monk Thich Quoc Duc, and the place where on June 11th, 1963, this 78-year-old monk decided to burn himself, decided to call attention to the injustice that was going on in Vietnam at that time. This picture appeared in newspapers throughout the world. Why would a Buddhist, a person of peace, why would an older elder choose to burn himself? Well, he had seen the leader of Vietnam, a Catholic, a person influenced by French colonialism, a person influenced by power, oppressing the Buddhist in the country, oppressing other Vietnamese, and he wanted to call attention. He wanted to bring light on what was going on. We took a boat up the Perfume River, and we went to the beautiful pagoda, the place where this monk lived such a peaceful existence. He had gone to that monastery when he was 8 years old, and he had learned the wisdom of Buddhism, the wisdom of peacemaking. Okay, you are missing the picture of where we were at the monument to the Buddhist monk. Okay, so I think maybe I'll say something about it. We stood there, we took a picture where he had sacrificed himself, and we thought, are we willing to bring light to injustice? Are we willing to bring light to violence? Or will we be the people who will even give our lives to make a more peaceful world? We were on our way to see the Cu Chi tunnels, and we were driving along the road where a 9-year-old little girl was burned on June 8th, 1972. A South Vietnamese aircraft who was working with the United States of America accidentally dropped napalm on the village that we were visiting, Trang Bang. Then this picture by a journalist appeared throughout the world on newspapers. The little girl, Kim, is screaming from the pain of the napalm on her flesh. And it was this picture appearing throughout the world that began to get the hearts, to get the minds, to get the consciences of people, and to think something is wrong when we are killing children like this. Though through the ages, Christians have talked about just war, that war is causing some harm, but there is more good being done. I think we need to realize that in the modern world, more civilians than soldiers are dying in wars. In the modern world, millions of children are suffering and dying in wars. After she was so terribly burned, she went to the place of the Cao Dao Monastery, which we visited, and she joined the nuns there, and her mother kept saying to her, "Your body is so ugly, no man would want to marry you with all of those burns." And after some years, she finally felt no, she was not called to be a nun. She went on to Cuba, and she had an opportunity to study there. And then she went to Canada, and she married, and she had children. And Kim has started a foundation to help children who have been hurt by violence. And let's think about that. If we have been hurt through violence, do we remain in anger? If we have been hurt by violence, do we try to hurt another? Or if we have been hurt by violence, do we transform our energy and start foundations to help others? Do we teach the messages of peace? Are we the people who transform the world from bad into good? Okay, so now you are not getting to see the children that are victims of Agent Orange. So I'm just going to talk about it, and then Sherry, if we're able to weave in some of these pictures later, it would be a good thing. While we were in Vietnam, we kept hearing stories about people who had suffered from Agent Orange. Now, I had a number of cousins who were in Vietnam. One has Parkinson's disease now because he was exposed to Agent Orange. And we had an exhibit of photos here of so many U.S. veterans who died of leukemia, of kidney disease, of other things related to being exposed to Agent Orange. It was a chemical made by Dow Chemical Company that was dropped on forest areas because they wanted to kill all the trees so they could see if any soldiers were there or if any weapons were hidden in that area. But the U.S. soldiers were being killed by the very things that were killing and hurting the Vietnamese at the time. And I want you to realize that U.S. soldiers gave birth to children with birth defects. And I want you to consider these pictures of Vietnamese children 3 generations later who are being born with these terrible deformities because the land is still polluted from using Agent Orange. Now, I want to go very quickly from Vietnam to Iraq because I was in parts of Iraq where depleted uranium had been used on U.S. weapons. And you may have heard of the Gulf War syndrome. Thousands of veterans who came back from serving in the Gulf War had leukemia, kidney problems. They had strange diseases and people didn't quite know what was going on. With time and research, it was discovered that their weapons, which were plated with depleted uranium, were also causing these toxic things in our veterans and leading many of them to death or to ongoing illnesses. The part of Iraq that I visited had over 20% of the men infertile because the exposure to depleted uranium was preventing them from fathering children. And needless to say, that is a very, very to completely give up on my pictures. I'm going to talk about everything in a very garbled and confused way, and then Sherry, we are going to try to make some sort of sensible 3 or 4 minute story out of the garbled things. Students, are you all right? Okay, good. Okay, Sergio, you got me? Great. I, as a student, had seen the terrible pain of the people burned in Vietnam. My relatives were suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome, and I was determined in any ways I could to learn the ways of peace and to work for peace. I went to Nagasaki, one of the first places where the United States dropped a nuclear bomb in 1945. And I learned the story of Sadako and 1,000 paper cranes. Now, Sadako was 2 years old when the bomb was dropped in Nagasaki. And when she was 11 years old, she was dying of leukemia. Now, there is a wonderful legend in Japan. If you fold 1,000 paper cranes, you will get whatever you wish for, whatever you hope for. Sadako started folding paper cranes. Now, this is 1,000 little bitty paper cranes, and she was folding and folding and folding, and she died. The after effect of that nuclear bomb. Ever since then, children in Nagasaki and now children throughout the world are folding paper cranes. And these are our symbol of our hope, our dream, our prayer that we can co-create the world that Sadako wanted, a world of no more bombs, no more killing. Okay, now I'm going to transition. Okay, I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to try to do it. Okay. So much of our history is the history of males. When we talk about the divine, so often people conceive the divine as a male, as a powerful one. But let us realize the human story is women as well as men. The human story is the vulnerable ones as well as the powerful ones. In 1974, I created an art exhibit called Reflections on God as Our Mother and on the hidden history of our foremothers. Now, again and again, in the history of the Catholic Church, we hear about the pillars of the church. Well, I want for you to be thinking about the pillows of the church. Saint Catherine of Siena was one of those pillows. She spoke truth to power, and she challenged the queen and the king and the cardinals and the bishops, and she challenged the Pope himself, saying we need to care for others, not work for our own power. Now, Therese of Lisieux is holding a chalice, and she really felt the comfort of God in communion, and she felt that priests could share communion, usually at about 24 or 25, and she prayed, if I can't be a priest on earth, may I be a priest in heaven. So Therese of Lisieux, a pillow of the church, died at that age. I am a founding member of the Women's Ordination Conference, and we make funny money. All right, please have some funny money. Ooh, have some funny money. And when you go to a church, say that you are donating to the organizations that fully support women, not the organizations that are biased towards men. Okay, you probably should not put that in because this is not a Catholic story, but I just want you to know that since 1975, students, I went to the very first Catholic Women's Ordination Conference, and I have been in parallel conversations, and Sherry, maybe this idea can help you. I have been in parallel movements for justice for women in the world and the United Nations Decade in Solidarity with Women, the World Council of Churches Decade in Solidarity with Women, and the ongoing efforts in the Catholic Church as one of the Christian groups that does not yet fully affirm the gifts of women. Okay, students, now you know who I am. Okay, let me see. I have some really good things about the young people who talked to me in Iraq. And so, Sergio, let's see if you can get a teeny bit of this.
Did you already shoot the books up, didn't you? Did you already
Yeah,
shoot
I
that?
got some.
Okay, so I had this in my slideshow. I had this in my slideshow. Is it time for class to end?
Yes.
Okay.
Is there anybody who would speak with us for just a minute or two on camera?
Sergio,
About 3 minutes.
yeah, are you able to do this little piece?
Sure, sure. Sure.
Okay.
Go.
Good. Mohammed, a student just like you, told me a story of how he was watching television and he saw that there had been a battle and their side had won the battle. He was so excited. He was telling friends, our side won. And his teacher called him into the office for a few minutes, and then they stayed in conversation, and the teacher began to teach him, we don't want for any people to be destroyed. We don't want for any people to be killed. What we seek is understanding. Can we win the hearts and minds of the people? That is what makes a difference. Not winning the wars and destroying the others, but winning the hearts and minds of the people. Okay,
Very good.
Now.
Serge, let's get set up.
Okay, we're rolling.
Okay, tell me your name.
Oh, hi, I'm Maria Alvarez, and
Spell your first and last name for me.
MariaAlvarez.
And you're a senior?
Yes, I'm
A
a
senior
senior.
this year. What are you going to major in?
I major in accounting.
Accounting.
Mm-hmm.
This class is about global peace. Why'd you come in here today?
I took it because actually I know Sister Martha Ann. Actually, I was her neighbor for a semester, and I used to work at Inner City Development Center.
What'd you think about what she talked about today?
It did resonate with me because I'm not good with conflict, and it's saddening the idea how we exhaust ourselves out of greed. I think that's what it is. And if only we could be more humble, or we could be appeased with what we have and be able to share what's left over.
What do you think about her message? I mean, her message is about peace. Her message is about rights for all people, including women. Her message is about the earth and environment. All of those kind of came together the way she talks. What do you think about that?
I was impressed with how she put everything, and it's a good reminder because I'm working in business, and a lot of times people have negative association with business where you want more for the company, you just want to earn money, and you're not going to think about, I guess, the people who are in need. And honestly put, that's why I would like to work with nonprofits, that they do need the professional help so that they can expand their services for people that actually need them.
Do you think her message resonates with people your age?
Yes, because we're constantly reminded how when we're older, the world is probably going to be in a worse condition than it is now. And we're kind of on this countdown of like in a few years, how bad is it going to be? And so we need to do something now about it.
Do you feel like there's a connection between the issues with environment and with talking about peace? Did you see that connection?
Yes, because the simplest thing is, let's say you have a house, and if it's a house that's in chaos or a dirty house, then you're not going to be at peace. So you're more likely to be at peace and comfortable if you're in an environment that is like that.
What was your takeaway from this today?
My takeaway was, I think she was talking about connections with people. She said she danced with people, she sung with people, she walked with people. And if we can just focus on being kind to each other, we don't have to go out right now, maybe later on, but right now we can start with the smaller steps of just finding peace in our own relationships.
Very good. Did a great job. Thank you.
Thank
That's it.
you.
Nice and
Okay.
quick, right?
We're rolling.
Okay, very good. And tell me your name.
My name is Jose Sanchez.
And I want you to spell your first and last name so I spell it right.
Okay, so it's Jose, and then Sanchez is SANCHE, then C as in zebra.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Okay, and while we're still recording, you're still on, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you from San Antonio?
I'm actually from a border town that's 2 hours away from here. It's called Piedras Negras. I was born and raised there. I lived there my whole life. I have my family business is over there, and I came to UIW like 2 years ago.
Okay. Okay, very good. Tell me when you hear Sister Martha, you obviously know her because you know you're
Yeah.
helping her and working with her, and you rolled in the big
Yeah,
stuff.
the big thing.
What do you think about her message?
I think it's a good thing that she does these kinds of things because I've done them too, and I've gone to other places with missionary people. I've actually given a year of my life to dedicate to like Catholicism and all this, and I'm just waiting on my studies like to finish and go back to my regular like life with my dad and my mom and working and all this. I'm not a saint or anything. I just go to church. I have my Catholic groups here in San Antonio, and I'm just a regular guy.
What about her message of peace? Right now, especially, well, even along the border, we see violence in places, whether it's over ideas or drugs or whatever. What about her talking about peace? How does that resonate with you?
Peace is something that in my hometown hasn't been for at least 6 to 7 years. So it's good that there's people out there that think like her, but you cannot deal with these criminals and all these people. Like, they don't even have a soul, they don't have a heart, they're cold-blooded killers, you know.
What, after you've heard her, you've listened to her talk about working toward peace in whatever way we can as people, does that inspire you to want to do something similar in your life somewhere, maybe not in your home, whatever? Does it inspire you?
Yeah, it kind of does, because she's been doing this for I don't know how many years, and every time we see her, every time she calls us, is a smile on her face. No matter what's going on in her day, she's always smiling, she's always saying thank you. She gives you a positive attitude, and I think it's because of all the great things she's done. So yeah, it inspires me to do the same thing.
Peace is hard to achieve in our lifetimes, right?
Yeah.
Do you think she's making a difference?
I think she is, because she speaks out for in this community, like in San Antonio. There's a lot of people that don't have peace, a lot of people like that don't know what they're going through. They don't know if they're gonna live tomorrow or not. But at least me, when I'm with her, I feel safe. I don't feel like I need to worry about anything else. It's a good time when you're having a talk with her.
She has an interesting background, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Like marching and for peace years before you were even born. She marched
Yeah.
for peace in this country. She's gone to other countries. What went through your mind when you first heard those stories?
The first thing that went through my mind when I started hearing those stories about like she got arrested and whatnot, it was like, wow. Even though after all those things, she still didn't give up. She's still doing it. That for me would have been like, you know what, this is not for me, I'm going back. But she wouldn't give up. She doesn't care who sees her over there. She doesn't care if she gets sick or whatnot, and that inspires, I think, a lot of people to do these kinds of things. But she has to be really like brave inside and all these kinds of stuff to do what she does. I don't think anybody can do it. Not everybody can do it.
I think she does have to be brave and speak out as she speaks out. And go to places that, Iraq, she's over there, she goes to, Palestine, I take it from what she was talking about.
Yeah.
She goes to a lot of places some of us would be kind of scared to go to.
Yeah, I don't think when they say like Iran, Iraq, the first thing that comes to my head is war, and I wouldn't want to go over there. Because if you leave the country, it's like mostly for a vacation, and I don't think you can be safe over there or be in peace with yourself over there.
She does it anyway.
Yeah, that's.
Has it changed your life knowing her?
I've known her for about 6 months, so maybe, a little bit. It's helped me, like, I would talk to her when I was having, like, an issue with my professor, like, he wouldn't give me a grade I deserved, or I wasn't feeling confident about a presentation. She would help me go and do that. So, yeah, she has helped me a lot in the time I've been here.
If you were to describe her in a few words, what would you say?
She's a really nice, caring, kind person, loving person that she looks out for the rest of us instead of her own.